Ever started solving one to two profit and loss questions and had to stop? Not because you got bored, but because you got frustrated? That kind of frustration where your head feels like it's about to burst from all the confusion and you have only done two questions. You told yourself you'd do 10 in one sitting, but now you're just staring at the page thinking, I'll do it later. The real problem? You feel overwhelmed in every question you try. And instead of building up gradually, the difficulty just jumps out of nowhere. Your brain can't focus. That makes it 10 times more irritating. I've been there, literally. I started learning math from scratch and I never expected that almost every other question would feel like something I've never seen before. It's exhausting and it makes you question if you are even making progress. First things first, I just couldn't get over the assumption problem. You know how in many of these questions you are supposed to assume a number, like 100, to make things easier? Yeah, well, turns out it's not always 100. Sometimes the solution assumes 100, sometimes it takes 1, sometimes it's x, and sometimes it's even 100x. And I was like, what is this sorcery? Sure, you might say, if taking 100 makes it easier for you, then just stick with that. But trust me, it's not that simple. The type of question often decides what you should assume, and the goal is to reduce the mess in your calculations, not add to it. So I stopped trying to force one method and instead started looking for patterns. When do they take 1 and why? When does x make more sense than 100? I've only done 5 to 8 questions so far, so I'm still walking through it. But every time I get stuck, I go back to a small set of reminders I've written for myself, kind of like a cheat sheet for assumptions. It's not perfect, but it's helping. And honestly, that's all I need right now. Something to help me keep moving forward without losing my mind. Here's how I go about it. When to assume 100? I assume 100 when the question gives only percentages. No rupees value, no weight, no units, just plain percent. Why 100? Because percentages are based on 100. So if I assume the cost price is 100, it makes calculations clean and easy. For instance, a trader gives a 10% discount but still earns 20% profit. What's the markup? Well, cost price is 100, let's assume. At 20% profit, selling price becomes 120. Now backtrack the 10% discount and figure out the marked price. When to assume X? Next, I use X when the question has actual numbers and I have to form an equation. These are the ones where they said something like had he bought it for 15% less and sold it for 150 rupees more, and the question continues. That's my cue to assume cost price equals x. Why x? Because I need to set up an equation and solve for the unknown. That's algebra's job. So if the question has rupee values and percent changes, I'm usually going with x. When to assume 1? Then there's the assume 1 method, and this is for those tricky questions involving weights or ratios, like the ones where the shopkeeper uses a faulty weight, gives you 800 gram instead of 1 kg, or keeps 200 ml less. Here I assume The cost of 1 kg or 1 unit is rupees 1. It simplifies everything because I'm not really working with rupees. I'm working with ratios and proportions. Now, when to assume 100x? This one's rare but helpful when the percentages are weird, like 12.5% is 37.5%, and I don't want decimals in my calculations. So I scale things up a bit by taking 100x as the cost price. Same method as assuming 100, just cleaner when things get fractional. These rule of thumbs prevented me from getting overwhelmed by the constant switching. Assumptions, though, is just the starting trouble. What's really hard is that with word problems, you don't just need to know the formulas, you need to know how to approach the question itself. Like, how do I begin? What's given? What's missing? Which formula even fits here? And yeah, I've always known that when you get good at something, you can just look at a question and your brain instinctively starts forming the path, formula, steps, maybe even the answer. But in reality, I was jumping into questions trying to do that from the start, trying to solve it all in my head. And that's where it backfired. Because unless you have practiced enough and seen enough variation, that instinct doesn't kick in. You end up wasting time, getting irritated, and thinking you're bad at it, when really you just need more exposure. Now, here's the thing, I'm not skipping that process. Although I'm not solving 100 questions off camera and then coming back here with polished answers, I'm doing it bit by bit, even with just a few problems. I've started realizing why practice matters. Not because practice makes perfect, we all know that, but because practice is what helps you recognize the structure of a question before you even start solving it. That's what I was missing. My concentration dropped because I couldn't organize the question. I wasn't seeing a path forward. Then I remembered something simple from school. First, write what's given. Then, figure out what's not. Then, think about what connects them, the formula, the logic. That structure helped me slow down. And when you slow down, you build speed the right way. Mental speed isn't your starting point, it's your reward. Apart from all these very specific problems, I would say there's this very real struggle that is important to talk about. One that hits all of us. Whether you're a math geek, just average at it, or someone who's always found it tough. It's that moment when things feel too confusing. You solve a question or two, hit a wall, and say, I'll come back to it later. And yeah, sometimes you do come back, but what if you don't? What if every time you sit down, it feels like your mind just shuts down? And slowly, it's not just one question you walk away from, it's the whole topic, or even the subject itself. I've felt that spiral more than once, trust me. But because the resolve is so strong, I sometimes end up spending minutes, even hours, on a single problem, which honestly isn't always the wisest move either. So here's something that helped me recently: ChatGPT. Now, instead of bottling it up, I explain the question out loud to it. Like I'm talking to a person. And surprisingly, sometimes halfway through talking, even before I send the message, things start to click. The logic begins to surface. That's why I say, speak your confusion. Don't pull away when it feels messy. Stay with it. And when your brain goes blank in the middle of explaining, it's not shutting down, it's searching. Searching to fill you with that surge of knowing.